My
Oh,
passion has always been people, you
oh,
know,
that's
knowing people and getting to know people, people knowing me.
yeah.
That has been my passion for a very long time. I've always been very interested in, how do I put this? In people's well being.
And I guess with your passion, I mean, there's you'd always find if you're passionate about people, there's always opportunity to. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
In terms of how you view life, are you more about living a life of adventure or relationship building, which is what I pick up definitely from you.
More relationship building cups,
The
more that,
community taker. Yeah,
more that kind of thing.
yeah.
Being adventurous, no, not really my thing. I need to know where I go and where I come from.
You're a
You
planner.
know, that's it. I
I
need to
hear
have
you. I'm the
security.
same. I hear
Basically, I
you.
need to have security. And having worked for Liberty all these years,
When did you start
it,
working for Liberty, by the way?
I started working for Liberty in 1982. That blue runs through my veins,
You've been across the group.
all over. And I've met anybody and everybody,
Sure.
whoever up until now. There's been so much change. But like, change is inevitable, so you must go with it.
And then when did you start working? When did you start your career?
I started my career in 1978.
Wow.
My passion was to be a teacher.
Mm,
Then obviously Teachers College didn't work for me.
okay.
And then I started working for the mines in Randfontein because we lived there at the time.
Okay.
But that was my year after matric, after the Teachers College thing didn't work. So I then heard that the mines were recruiting people and I went to work for the mines. But that just lasted for the year. And then January 1979, those days you didn't have learnerships. It was called apprenticeships.
Yeah.
So I got a printing apprenticeship with Mutual and Federal.
Okay.
For 4 years. And then when I qualified, I just by chance, so those days everything was advertised in the classifieds, in the Star,
Yes, yeah.
Star newspaper. And I came across the ad and I thought, let me try this and see what happens. And I got the job, and I started working for Liberty February 1982.
Wow. So if you had to go back to that time in terms of your attitude towards life, do you think that it's changed much, or you still you've always been that, that community caretaker, the person who's about relationship building?
Cups, that was a different time. It was a very different time, Also, at the time, I was only 19 when I started working.
Yeah.
I turned 22 when I started working for Liberty. And at that time, you weren't much aware of what was happening around you.
No.
Yeah. I had a job, and as an apprentice, you had to apply yourself. Because at the end of that apprenticeship, you had to go do a test. And that would determine whether you had a job or not. It was basically like attending a technical college, although it was on the job, which was better.
Got it.
Because then you learn the ins and the outs, the processes and all of that.
Got it. And what was your perception towards retirement then? Were you even thinking about retirement at that point? You did say you were 19, 20?
At that time, I was so out there. I just never thought I was going to get to this age. It just seemed too far off.
You were living in the moment.
I was living in the moment. Also, if you look at the era that we lived in, life was fun. Life was lived. We lived life. We didn't survive from day to day or sat around waiting as to, oh, shucks, what's going to happen next? We didn't have those things. We just lived life.
Yeah, 100%. I hear you.
You just lived life. And then when I started working for Liberty, it was such a long time ago that everything we did, you've seen our setup in studio.
Yeah.
Okay, working with Apple Macs and all fancy. In those days, there wasn't these things. You had to know your story. You had to know what you were doing.
Yeah.
Everything was done manually.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the IBM typewriters.
I do.
But it was a typewriter. And those days, it wasn't even electronic. The electronic typewriters only came out like 3 or 4 years later. And then eventually it evolved and it got better. And then started the era where you could start saving things. In those days, you couldn't.
Yeah.
So you had to be so accurate and you had to know what you were doing. I mean, in those days, your biggest type size was like a 12.
Oh my God.
Everything else you wanted to do, there was a thing called letter set. It was lettering that was sold, which you actually had to, using that was a different story again as well,
Yeah.
And that's where this whole thing came from.
Sure. And so I can imagine back then, you were doing an apprenticeship. How were you getting paid? Like, how were you were getting a pay slip and a check? Did you get to see how much you're saving towards retirement? How did it work then?
You know what? Like I said, at the time, you didn't think of retirement. Retirement was further from your mind.
Yeah.
And then also, as an apprentice, you didn't earn much.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's still like that today, where if you start working, you've got to help the family.
Yeah.
You've got to help support the family and see. I mean, when I started working, I had to hand my salary over to my mother just like that, and they would work with them. It wasn't like you could get your salary and you're going to go splash it. No, it didn't work like that. And at the time, retirement, I think I didn't even hear the word at the time. Retirement. I haven't even heard the word.
Sure.
It's only at a later stage where, when I got to Liberty, it's like I said to you, I got to work with a lot of people. I got to associate with a lot of people. And then you started working with the brokers and the agents, and you started hearing people talking about
the language changes.
Yes. And that's where I started becoming aware of retirement. Then my first retirement annuity I took out in 1987.
Okay.
I also don't think that working class people like us are ever going to be ready for retirement. But then, not just the money aspect, there's also the mental aspect of it. Because now, all of a sudden, you don't have a routine anymore.
Yeah.
And you have all of this time on your hands and you wonder, oh, what am I going to do today? But I mean, I've still been fortunate to be able to contract. And I don't know if this contract, if it's going to be renewed, if it's not going to be renewed.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me personally, still being part of Liberty, it's not about the money actually.
Yeah.
It's just that I can still give back. If you want to use, I hate that term, give back. What are you giving back? But I can still contribute towards Liberty.
Yeah. I think that you've touched on something that's so profound, and I guess I've never thought of it this way. And when you say that, the mental aspect of retirement. So when we plan for retirement and we talk about planning for retirement, we think of it from a financial point of view.
Yes, I think mainly.
Yes, mainly, but there's also that sense of purpose. There's also that mental aspect, like you said, where how are we thinking about planning for it then?
Yon Cup,
It's
sorry.
so great to hear it from someone, who's walked the journey and who's at what we think is the end of the journey of retirement, but it goes beyond it.
I think we fool ourselves by thinking that we're going to have all of this money's coming to us. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And also, the one thing that I made sure of, that I can say with surety, is that I don't get myself into debt. Because when
Mm,
you get to the stage, what can you really still need out there? What can you really still want out there? You know what I'm saying? And
that's
then also, you don't earn a full month salary like you used to when you were working. So you've got to adapt. But
stuff.
it's for me personally, it wasn't that big because, like I said to you, I'm debt free. So with what I'm getting out, I can live on that,
Yeah.
you know. And okay, cost of living is going up all the time. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes we worried about things that's not really there,
Mm,
you know.
mm,
And also automatically, it's not that you're cutting back. You start realizing, you know what, I don't need this. I don't need that. But sometimes it's a want,
mm,
you know. And
mm.
and your way of life, some people, I'm speaking for myself here,
Yeah.
you know, my way of life since retirement hasn't changed that much,
Mm,
and I think some of us want to go big. You still do whatever needs to be done, and there is still some left for you to have fun.
yeah.
And I think for me personally, Cubs, I've just been very blessed and very fortunate in so many ways.
Yeah.
And we mustn't actually leave that out of the equation. When I look back, having worked for liberty, sometimes I tend to think that, oh, I got myself there.
Yeah.
But I forget to think how blessed I was to
Mm,
be there, you
mm.
know. And a lot of other people was not as fortunate as me to
That's
be placed in a company like Liberty,
that's true.
you know.
Mm,
And a lot of us think that whatever happens in our lives, it's based on our decisions, it's based on what we've accomplished. It's
yeah.
not, you know, and we think we're in control and we think we're in charge, but we're not. Caps, if you look at this pandemic, ever
Yeah.
since it started, this whole COVID thing, if you
Mm,
look at how many people had passed on,
sure.
you know, they didn't even have the privilege of retiring. I mean, I'm
Mm,
talking about people, colleagues that we knew
yeah.
working at Liberty. I
Mm,
know some of them who were preparing for retirement,
yeah.
that they are going to go on retirement,
Mm,
and they just never got to see retirement, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, you know.
That is so true. Mm. Sure. That's yeah, that's wisdom speaking. But what I'm taking out now in terms of if we go back to just retirement um as a concept is that it's not something that starts and then happens. You spoke about making sure that you are not in debt in terms of preparing for your retirement. You spoke about simplifying your lifestyle so that you're comfortably getting through retirement. And I think that those are very important things to share, and kind of knowledge to share with people who are maybe someone like me who's not even yet really thinking about retirement. I know it's there, it's lurking, but I'm not really
Yeah.
thinking about it. And I'm not thinking that, okay, if I have debt now, how does it affect, my retirement? If I make certain lifestyle decisions now, how does it affect um, my retirement as well? And I think that's very important. Um, what was the case with like your close circle in terms of family, friends, advisors? You mentioned your advisor prepared you, but what was the experience in terms of retirement? What did you learn from them, and what did you share with them about your experience?
Cups. Um, it's like I said to you, we all different and we all look at things differently. And the only way you sometimes have sort of like um, different perspectives is when you speak to people. So a lot of people admired me for going on pension because now I don't have to get up in the morning. I don't have to go to Liberty, and I don't have to get caught up in the politics in the company. I don't have to caught
Ideal.
up.
Yeah.
And what I can say is like, even up until that point, when I spoke to the broker who helped me through this thing, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to make a dash. I'll take my money, travel the world, see places.
See ya.
And yeah. And after I spoke to him, I realized, you know what? You're going to have to work with this very carefully.
Mm.
And it's like I say to you, I think, like you saying, it's lurking, but you haven't given much thought to it.
Yeah.
I think it's at the age where you are now. What you're doing in your mind is the right thing. It's working for you at the time. And
Yeah.
you don't need to listen to me who's at this age, It's like I was at age 2 and I actually had the same thoughts. And maybe if you take a step back and you listen to what I'm saying, you'll be better prepared for it.
Yeah, 100%.
And at this age, we think we're invincible. And we can do anything, we can do everything.
That's so true.
But it's like you say, it's lurking there. And when you open your eyes, it's right upon you.
Yeah.
And we want to have this, and we want to have that, and we want to make an impression. Those things aren't important, It's nice to have.
Yeah.
My thing, nice to have. But does it really make a difference in your life? Is it going to change your mindset? Is it going to change where you find yourself?
Is it going to grow?
Is it going to grow you?
Yeah.
What's going to contribute? There's so many things in all of this. And I think for me, personally, you should actually start preparing for this as early as possible.
Yeah.
You don't have to invest big. But how the old people say, put something away in your nest egg.
Yeah.
Don't finish it all today. Tomorrow is another day. Although it's not guaranteed, we don't know if we're going to see it.
Yeah.
But I think, like somehow or the other, I think the earlier you made aware of it, the earlier you can realize, that life is not just a big party.
True.
There is quite a bit of responsibility that comes with it. And also when you get to this age, it's like I said to you, I most probably just been very fortunate, very blessed, very privileged, my health is so good. And that's another aspect of it. And also sometimes, we just don't realize, or you hear people talking about this thing and you think, that doesn't affect me. But comes a time when you are affected by it and you say, I should have listened.
Exactly. That's so true. That's so true. I think
And like I say to you, everybody should be made aware of what retirement is all about,
mm,
you know.
mm. And that
And
it doesn't just function on its own. It functions with
no,
everything else that has to do with your finances.
also you find that you don't belong anywhere anymore because now you don't have that routine anymore, you
Mm,
know. And I don't know if everybody deals well with that. You
yeah.
know, I can't think, and I don't want to sound now knowing so much about it, but
Mm,
some of us are mentally unprepared for this thing. I
mm.
mean, that's why you find people who want to work for as long as they possibly can,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to retirement age, you find that some people find that they're not prepared enough for this thing.
Yeah.
And I think people should be made aware of it.
100%. So more of a narrative around, because I mean, we are very diverse creatures, right? And there are different things. As much as you are in the corporate space and you're growing in the corporate space, there are parts of you that you're passionate about. There are things that you want to do outside of the corporate space, and maybe like incorporating that into a plan for when you retire, to say that, for my
Yes.
sense of purpose or for my sense of belonging and being able to connect to a certain kind of community, I should also plan for that from a mental and personal
Yes.
development point. Mm,
Because also now you now become more aware of what's going on out there. And again, I mean, it's like I said to you, my passion's always been people, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Now you see what's happening to some people because now you're in it. Whereas when you used to go to the office, come home and be at home, go to the office,
Mm,
and now you become more aware of what's happening, not only in your community, but
yeah,
you also become aware of what's happening out there as well.
yeah, yeah.
Because now you find yourself in a space where your life can be affected by what's happening out there.
Mm.
You know, if you look at this COVID thing, I mean, we didn't see this coming.
No, we were not ready for it. We just were not ready.
We didn't see, and this is basically my thinking again, Kat. I'm not saying it should apply to other people's lives. But now all of a sudden you become aware of it and you feel like maybe I could have done a bit more, you know, or I could have contributed a bit more, not to your pension fund, but to life itself, to
Oh,
people itself, you
mm,
know.
yeah, yeah, that's a
And
complete.
it's just a total different awareness.
Mm,
And also, this is not going to sound right, but now they are not in the workspace anymore.
yeah.
You actually start realizing how horrible people can be in the workspace. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you people's stories, you know.
Mm,
I mean, it seems like it doesn't matter where you are or
yeah.
who you work for or the company or the industry.
Mm,
At the end of the day, it seems like everybody's faced with the same problem.
yeah,
You
that's so true.
and and you it creates a different awareness.
Yeah.
So that's a plus for retirement. You
Mm,
know, you become more aware of what's happening.
around you.
That has been my experience now in the short space of
Sure. Short space of time.
time.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with me, Graham. I think we've covered quite a
And
bit.
I hope this helps. I
It's
hope it
I
will
think
shed light.
it's been very insightful, definitely shedding light for me. So I think it will be just as valuable for anybody else.